Hi, and we are talking today about Shakespeare. And the big question everybody asks is, why should we read Shakespeare? We have three reasons. Sarah, what would be your reason? Why should people who are learning English learn about Shakespeare and read his works? What do you think?
Because he wrote his plays 400 years ago, and they are still being performed, and they are still very much admired. And a great deal of the language that Shakespeare used is still in use in the English language every day, still. So there is a great history in English language from Shakespeare.
And also in his works, all his characters are super complex, and he describes he talks about complexity of emotions.
Yes.
So he goes deep into the soul.
Yes, that is actually true. And not in all his plays, but in some, yes. Yep.
And of course, we are not saying that you need to read his works in the original language, because that would be quite a task.
It's very difficult for English people, speaking for myself.
But there are different versions. They have been simplified for readers, for different levels. So you can choose. There is an option for you.
The trouble is, the simplified versions don't really give you the depth of the personalities involved. They give you the story, which is fine.
Yes.
But if you want to understand why Hamlet behaved as he did, or why Macbeth did what he did, then you need something a little bit more complicated.
In today's video, we are going to tell you 10 interesting facts about William Shakespeare.
Okay.
And we will start with fact number 1, his early life.
Right.
So we know that he was born in April, 23rd of April in 1564 in Stratford-upon-Avon.
Yes.
And what else do we know about his early life, Sarah?
He married very young. He married a lady called Anne Hathaway, who was actually older than him. They had 3 children.
Yes.
Okay. His father was a glove maker. Obviously, he didn't want to follow in his father's footsteps, and so he headed off to London. That's the only place where there were theatres and theatre companies that he could join. He had bigger ambitions.
Yes. Now, that brings us to education.
Yes.
He didn't have super...
Well, the fact that he had any education at all would have been unusual, as the son of a glove maker living in a village of no particular reputation or wealth. To have had at least the minimum of education which he got was actually unusual, and it would not have been free. So somehow he paid for that, his father paid for that education.
Yes, and I think we need to mention the fact that he studied languages, so he studied Greek.
Yeah, he learned all the lessons that everybody in those days thought was terribly important, which is Latin and Greek, the classics. But that taught him to read and to write, and obviously gave him a feeling for the classical world. So he didn't get that much education, but obviously enough.
Impacted English language in an enormous way. And some of the words we are still using today, invented them.
Whoever was teaching him obviously gave him the idea that you can make up your own words. Because the English language then was very fluid. Nobody really had a written dictionary or anything. And he obviously got the idea that you can say whatever you like in whatever word you want to use. And that actually is what makes his language so original and interesting.
And do you know how many words he actually invented?
You have told me, it's quite a lot. 1,200 or something.
Yeah, 1,700.
Yeah. Oh, I was close.
Yeah,
right,
yes,
okay.
yes. So it's impressive, isn't it?
Indeed.
Yeah. The themes he discusses or he talks about, he writes about in his works, universal.
Absolutely.
So he talks about love, jealousy, power, greed,
betrayal.
Yes.
Love.
All these things which are universal and they are timeless.
Yeah.
And the way he talks about it, and it's still relevant today.
Because human nature doesn't change. We are still filled with ambition, love, betrayal, jealousy, all the rest of it. Nothing changes in the human condition. And he pinpoints it and describes it and discusses it in a very original way.
He wrote plays.
Yes.
But I believe he was a very clever businessman.
Yes.
As you said, he then went to London. Because when you write your plays, then you need the audience.
Yeah.
And of course, he didn't have it in Stratford-upon-Avon. That
And
was
you
too
need the
small.
actors.
So he went to London and he first became an actor.
Yeah.
And then there was this thing with the plague and that theatre.
Close the theatres down. Yeah.
Yes. And then he started his own theatre.
Yeah.
The Globe Theatre.
Yeah. Which must have needed some financial input, to put it mildly. That one then burnt down. And he persisted. When the theatres were closed down, it didn't stop him. He opened his own theatre company. I think that was banned. It's an interesting story between rival theatre groups, his and another one. But, yeah.
So still, as we said, the themes, people don't change.
No, we all
Human
have
nature
exactly
doesn't
the
change, as
same
you said.
emotions. Yeah.
Yes, and then what is interesting about the theatre? I think it was round.
It's called the Globe because it was round, and most of the people watching the play stood in the central circle underneath the stage. But if you had any money at all, you sat in a seat. You could get a seat round the outside that was covered. The people in the middle were uncovered and open to the elements, cold, wet, and everything.
Yeah.
But that was fine. And in the English climate,
Thank
shows pretty good. Yeah.
Yes, the love for
they must have really
theatre.
wanted to be there. Yeah.
Yes, and also it was interesting that back then there were no female actors.
Yes, yeah.
So
that was
Juliet had to be played by a man.
A young boy usually, because having a beard would have been.
Maybe.
But everybody knew that. I suppose you suspend your disbelief, which is a nice expression for when you go and see a play and you know it's a boy acting as a girl. But if the play captures your imagination, you can ignore that and really think of Juliet as a girl in love with this boy, Romeo, even though you do know it's a boy, and you suspend your disbelief, which we all do when we watch films or go to plays anyway. And that you're taken into it. You're
That's
there.
the magic of it.
Oh,
yes. Impact on literature.
Yes.
There are so many adaptations of his plays, and there are so many films made. And
there are lots of films which I can't name now. I don't know. I can't remember. And plays and stories that are actually the story of Hamlet, retold in another way. And actually, if you take it apart, think, that's just the story of Hamlet. They've taken it, but they've set it in another country with different people. But it's the same story of people behaving exactly as they did in the play Hamlet or Macbeth. Copies, it's interesting that people are still so interested that they bother to redo it all the way through.
Exactly. Timeless characters. So
Sorry, Romeo and Juliet, West Side Story.
Yeah.
It is a direct take on Romeo and Juliet, which made them amazing play, musical, West Side Story in the 60s, 1960s. And it is still being performed, and there was a new film came out recently that redid it. So it goes on and on and on.
We have discussed Othello, Macbeth, Hamlet,
Yeah.
the way he portrayed them, all their emotions, the complex personalities, how they behave, what makes them do what they do, the depth of it. I think that's what fascinates people.
I think it's quite intriguing. Macbeth and Lady Macbeth.
Lady Macbeth is apparently the strongest female character in the literature. The complexity of characters he came up with then when you think about it, like, wow.
Yeah.
And he wasn't a psychologist. He was just a writer.
Yeah.
To read people.
Yeah. He must have been a very clever
observer
of the people around him. It's interesting, isn't it?
And that's something to do with the language and with his expressions and idioms that he used. For example, to be or not to be.
All the world's a stage, and we are merely players.
People still use them today.
Yeah, we do, and we are unaware, as speaking as an English person, that we are doing it. But they are idioms or phrases that keep cropping up in everyday general conversation without thinking.
So all of these 9 interesting facts, I think, can be summed up in one fact, that these characters, his themes, his works, everything is still relevant today.
Of course.
400 years later.
Yeah.
And
we still have dictators, we still have kings, we still have love stories, and it really, society has not changed that much, and we can still see it happening.
And power-thirsty people, and people killing for money, and yes, and betraying, and about
people being brought down
and...
by their ambition, and so on. No, absolutely.
Yes, so I hope we have made it clear enough that you should definitely get a copy of one of his books and read it in the simplified language. If you've liked this video, please like it, share it, and subscribe to our channel. And we just hope that you will let Shakespeare conquer your heart and your mind.